Something that a lot of parents, a lot of people have been talking about, not just in Australia, but in the US. Now, there's been a measles outbreak in America. Now, this infected more than 170 people this year. That's despite the virus being absent from the US for more than a decade. New research shows that in the affected areas, the immunisation rate is as low as 50%. Australia was declared measles-free just last year. But in some areas, our vaccination rates have sunk lower than 50%. Mike Clay reports.
What do the suburbs of Mossman, Manly, South Yarra and Noosa Heads all have in common? They have high levels of wealth and education and low levels of childhood vaccination.
There is that mistrust of medicine in general. There is a preference for these sort of idealised natural lifestyles, and vaccines are perceived to be unnatural.
In areas like Mullumbimby in New South Wales, parents may visit a naturopath instead of a family GP, and avoiding vaccination is almost a social norm. The vaccination rate here is 47%, well below the 90% needed for herd immunity.
You're really looking at two groups here. The families who reject all vaccines and can be quite entrenched with their views, and the families who are maybe willing to consider some vaccines or are just really worried about vaccines and need some reassurance.
People have chosen not to vaccinate are doing this because they believe it's the best thing for their child. However, this belief is based on misinformation, often peddled by professional anti-vaccination groups.
But what about that supposed link to autism that anti-vaccination groups push? In 1998, Dr. Andrew Wakefield published a study in the prestigious journal The Lancet that claimed autism was linked to the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. But the research involved just 12 children, and 4 subsequent studies found absolutely no link. It later turned out that Wakefield's research had been doctored, and he'd received undeclared payments. Wakefield was stripped of his licence to practice medicine, and The Lancet retracted the article.
Certainly the autism vaccine scare really solidified some of the tools that the anti-vaccination movement is using in Australia.
But reason is trumping fear. Our national immunisation rate is over 90%, and an anti-vaccines campaigner from the US was this year forced to cancel her local tour after community members campaigned against it. Vaccination is an emotional topic, and it's easy to get angry at parents who reject it, but that may not be the best option.
So it's important that we don't go for that. I'll just give you the facts and you'll realise you're wrong and change your mind. It doesn't work, it's not effective, and may even be counterproductive.
In Australia, parents who don't vaccinate can be ineligible for some welfare payments, and in New South Wales and Victoria, even childcare. But do we need to go further to improve our numbers?
We're really asking what level of coercion is acceptable and treads that fine line between public health and individual rights.
Individual rights. Tim Freedom, I just called you. Tim, as a proponent of individual freedom, what do you make of this dispute over vaccination? If the lives of others are put at risk, should we have measures in place to protect them?
We're talking about something very different. We're not talking about adults making mature decisions for themselves. We're talking about children. And therefore, this whole individual rights narrative doesn't quite play out the same way. Children need to be protected from real and known and established risks. We know that vaccinations add value and protect them. And so I have no sort of broad philosophical objective to making sure that children are in the best position to be healthy. And as far as I can see, and I know I get a lot of people to write to me about vaccination, a lot. Hi, everyone. A lot of them. And I just haven't seen any credible evidence around the issue of
a lot of people writing to you to ask you to take it up as a question.
Yeah, and to take it up and to defend their rights not to have to vaccinate their kids. But we're not talking about a human right based on, if it's about me and making a decision about my body, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about your children. We're talking about something that is based in evidence. And there was a great video, actually, if you want to watch it. Go to Google, type it in Penn and Teller and vaccinations, where they basically just, to be brutally honest, destroy the argument against vaccinations.
Okay, so if we're talking about evidence-based science, do you think we need to be doing more than we currently are? Jenny?
Well, I think this idea of banning kids from childcare and restricting welfare payments, I think that is partially effective, and I have no problem with doing that, because it's not actually your children that are being affected, it's also other people's children as well. It's just, I think it's an amazing debate that people actually feel that they can defy the science, really.
Right.
On
Peter?
this.
I can't help drawing parallels with climate change denial. You've got the bulk of the science world telling people that this is in their long-term interest, and people get so passionate about refusing to listen to the science. And kids get sick, and it's not just your kid, it's other kids around them.
I just want to say there is absolutely no parallels between those two.
Well, there is, because you're totally turning it back on the science. I knew you couldn't get away with that.
We have to end now, unfortunately, on the drum. That's all for us. Thanks to our panel, Peter Lewis, Jennifer Hewitt and Tim Freedom Wilson. You can check us out online, abc.net.au/the drum, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Have an excellent night.